All right. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, things are going well for you today and you've got your kids safely tucked away so that you can focus, so that you can be dialed in and be here and ready to go. So, I'm glad that you've decided to come back one more time. And today we're going to talk very deeply about a number of different things. We're going to make sure that you are ready, that you are enabled to continue building your business because that's what we're doing. We're helping you to build your short-term rental business so that you can build cash flow. And you build that cash flow for the purpose of creating, owning, controlling, buying more assets. And as you continue this particular journey, well, you change, your business changes, and most importantly, you learn something very important, that you can't do it all by yourself. You need others to assist you along the journey. So we definitely are going to continue, and we're going to continue by helping you to understand who it is some of those individuals are in order for you to make the progress. So you're going to want to make sure you have your workbook. Hopefully you do. And when you do have the workbook, it looks like so. Like, is that right? There we go. It looks like this. So that's what the workbook looks like. And if you've got one, great. If not, then you definitely want to make sure that you grab one of those workbooks, etc. And let's see, as we continue, for those of you who were here prior, you know that Monday we were talking about when to start building cash flow. We've also talked about why to invest in short-term rentals, or more specifically, why the strategy of short-term rentals is, well, superior to many of the other choices that anyone could have possibly chosen and or made. And then yesterday we talked about getting to the capital, and at the end of the day, getting to the capital, as well as making sure that you have all of the additional resources that you could possibly need, and who it is that you need on the team is what we're going to talk about today. Now, let's recap yesterday and talk a little bit through those things as we get prepared to get into the things that are going to be necessary for you to have today. All right, so let's see. There we go. Now, inside your workbook, you hopefully have been doing the homework, completing the homework, and making more comments around the things that have been happening. Let me switch here so that we go back. Yes. And anytime you see me looking down, what's happening is that I'm holding the workbook in my own hand. And which is usually a clue to that you might want to be taking notes or referring to it, just so that you have all of the necessary fine points and or information. Now, what's also interesting is that we've got a couple of questions that we're going to talk about, questions that you guys have sent in. Thank you. And we're going to answer those as well as we recap some of the things that we talked about yesterday. Now, when it comes to building your short-term rental business, one of the things to understand is that you already have what you need. What does that mean? You know what it is that you intend, but also understanding who it is that you wish to serve is key. But not just who do you wish to serve, but how do you describe that service? In what way do you serve them? AKA, you provide that temporary housing. That is not, keywords, not a Airbnb business. That's what's really important to understand, is that it is not an Airbnb business. And at the end of the day, inside your phone, you actually already have access to all of the individuals that you need in order to get your business off the ground, assuming you need capital. Some of you don't, and that's great. Others of you might still, and I also understand that. We went through the script, if you remember, of what to say to the individuals, and making sure that even if you hadn't talked to them in a while, it still wasn't completely awkward when you were now talking to them on the phone regarding the business that you were looking to get started and to build. And also remember that investors are everywhere. They look like you and I. And the number one place, and I mentioned this very intentionally, very strongly, Uh, the number one place where our first $5 million of capital came from was retirement plans, other individuals' retirement plans. Specifically, let me tell you how to find them again. It's someone who's recently been laid off, period. Someone who has recently been laid, keyword being recently, has been laid off is the individuals. Those are the ones those are the ones that typically don't have a plan for their retirement plan. And let me be more clear. Most people have a retirement account, but no retirement plan. And now what you are doing is bringing them a plan that begins to help their retirement account. And that's really part of the secret sauce, if you will, of being able to attract the capital. And remember, when attracting capital, it's because you're solving a problem. That is the reason why someone will work with you, is because you're solving a problem. That's why all business happens. You don't pay rent because you like your landlord necessarily. You pay the rent because you needed a place to stay and you chose that one and you guys worked it out. You don't buy food because you buy food because you need to eat. Now, some of you buy certain foods because you can and you have choice, and that's great. And you choose to this particular type of meat or this particular bag of chips or what have you. You get my point. My point is that anytime currency leaves your possession, it's usually because you believe, keywords, you believe what you are going to receive in return is of greater value than you continuing to hold on to the currency. Therefore, the exchange happens. If you did not believe that, the exchange would not happen. Just that simple. And fortunately, when it comes to real estate and providing housing, the proof of concept has been there for quite some time. So it's not that hard to put yourself in a position in which, hey, guess what? I believe that people stay in houses and would do so on a temporary basis. Hopefully that makes lots of sense. Okay. Now we've got, what is this? Looks like 2 questions. One from Vondra Williams. I'm doing my best to pronounce names correctly. Hopefully I've got that. And then another question from, it looks like, Christy Schultz. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get both of these questions and do my best to completely thoroughly answer them. And then we'll continue to jump down into the who do you need on your team. So this part is not, obviously these questions are not in your workbook. However, you should have some pages of blank space. Yes, you should have some pages of blank space. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Oops. So you should have some pages that look like literally just lines, like so. So just lines. And then those pages and those lines should indeed give you the space to write down some of these questions. So let me get the questions one more time and make sure you have it. All right. So Vondra was asking, she says, my first question is, how would I know what price range to shop in? This is the answer based off what I think my customers need. For example, who I want to serve can use a studio or a 1-bedroom. I want to be sure on this part. Oh, okay. Got it. Totally understood. So Vondra, I appreciate this question, right? So let me see. Because basically what she's saying is, I want to shop, I want to make this happen, and therefore, what I want to do is make sure I get it right. Is the easy way of saying it. How does that all look, and how does that come together? Well, let me see what we can do here. Banner. Let me see. So, how would I know what price range to shop in for my customer? Totally makes sense. I think that's close. How would you know? Here's the thing. Regardless of customer type, or regardless of the customer, for each type of customer, there's like 3 levels. Here's what I mean. If you wanted to buy a shirt, say you were in the market and you wanted a shirt, You can buy shirts from Walmart. You can buy them from Target. You can also buy them from Nordstrom. Right now, let's say it's this shirt, and let's say that Walmart, Target, and Nordstrom all had a shirt with a similar design as to this one that I'm wearing. Um, Yet, if you bought the shirt from Walmart, you would have a certain expectation relative to the shirt. Part of that expectation, it would be the price. Second would be if you went to say Target and or Nordstrom, you'd have a different expectation than the shirt you got at Walmart. And this is key to think through as you're developing your strategy in terms of who you want to serve. Um, is to understand mentally, emotionally, etc., that that's like literally everything. Because a Nordstrom shopper, a Nordstrom customer has a completely different expectation than the customer at Walmart. And when you grasp and have that as the understanding, what you then know and what you can then be sure of is the only thing that you have to do is meet their expectation. That's your goal. So as you're going through the process, you decide. So yeah, you may think about, you're like, okay, my customer can use a 1 bedroom or they could use a 2 bedroom. Well, or sorry, a studio, 1 bedroom or a studio, I believe, Vandra, is what you said. So there are some 1 bedrooms that are lower price. There are some that are middle, and there's some that are a higher price. But more than that is, what is that bedroom or studio near? What is that customer coming to do? Meaning, if they're coming, say, to visit an amusement park, or if they're coming to visit the beach, or if they're on vacation, if they're coming or would be staying in your location because maybe they're just visiting family or visiting, their child at school. These are all things that play into the price range. Because if I was just coming to say, if I was going on vacation to go somewhere, I have a different budget, if you will, for accommodation than if I was going to a funeral. Now, I mentioned that because a funeral was literally the reason our first guest came. That was the reason they were coming to town. And if you can imagine, I'm all excited, like, hey, what brings you to Southern California? Oh, a funeral. Like, I see. I was in a very unique situation at that moment. Either way, the price ranges can vary, not just because your customer is coming for a certain reason. What does that mean? That means when you are building out who it is that you are looking to serve, what also is important is knowing why they're coming to town. So that same person has a different expectation regarding accommodations and the price of same set accommodations when you are near a hospital versus being near an amusement park versus just coming to town to visit family or visiting little Johnny at school. And that's why it's a part of the entire profile. But that's also why no matter where you are in a geographic area, you have so much opportunity across the city. So it's not like there's only one part of a city that will work. You just also have to consider that. So let me say it plainly. In general, what you want to think about is taking the rent, whatever that rent is for that location, multiply it by 2. When you multiply the rent by 2, that is a general approximation of what you should be able to earn on that location in the first 12 months of operation. Now, this will also be the lowest revenue. It should be the lowest revenue you ever earn on that location, barring a pandemic, of course. So, and that would give you the ways to understand. Now, once you know that that number, rent times 2, you want to just divide that, say, by 30, and that's going to begin to give you an idea of around what your daily rate would need to be. Now, that's not assuming occupancy, and we're not doing all of those things. We do, obviously, being able to come down to better numbers there is going to make sense. But typically, what I think you'll find is that rent times 2 divided by 30. Okay, I'll say that again. Rent times 2 divided by 30 is going to be often lower than the similar style or type of accommodation that is currently in your area, which to you, which is a good thing. All right. Now, and in some cases, it will be higher, and that's okay because you are providing a completely different experience, as we've talked about before. All right. Vandra also had another question. Let's see what we got. She wanted to know how to do the calculations and in order to in order to be sure I'm covering operating expenses. Got it. So, and I kind of just gave them to you at the end of the day. The simplest calculation is to go rent times 2 divided by 30. Rent times 2 divided by 30, right? And then once you have rent times 2 divided by 30, it'll be very straightforward. If you want, you can begin to call other hospitality companies, extended stays, or hotels, motels in the immediate vicinity. Now, when I say in the immediate vicinity, I don't mean 10 miles away on the other side of town. I mean within a 2-mile radius of whatever location that you're considering. Again, most of the time, what you're going to find is that you are well within every price range. And let me say this now before there's, because you may have this as an additional question. Saturation is that's not a don't let that be the thing that gets in your way. It's really not a thing, because partly because you have so well defined the customer that you are targeting, if that makes sense. When you have something and designed a space that is meant for a particular type of person, what ends up happening is that because it's meant for that person, you don't have any issues, if that makes sense. You just don't have the issues, because when that person sees the space is meant for them, they like, oh, great, this space is meant for me. All right, let's keep going. Christy had a question. She said, when talking to someone interested in the 401k option, okay, got it. What do we offer them? Okay, got it. Return over and above their 401k loan payment. Why would they trust us with their money? How do we get them there? Got it. All right. So, Christy, let me get this. So, when working with, now I'm going to change it. Instead of just being 401k, I'm going to just say a retirement plan, because not every country has a 401k. Those of you in Canada, you've got your, I think also Australia, you have your RRSPs, and in every country's got their own version of something like this. Okay. But in general, when we're talking about a retirement plan, the question is, what is the offer? What and why would they work with you? And how do you get them to do it? If that is what I am going to take as the question. So when working with someone's retirement plan, or what it comes down to is understanding that regardless of the source of capital, whether it's 401k, IRA, Roth IRA, 412, or sorry, yeah, well, 412I, 403B, solo K, the source of capital, while relevant, it is not a paramount to the reason why they will do it. It is relevant because that's typically where a lot of families actually have resources that can be used. All right. So, with that being said, in all cases, when thinking about what do you offer someone, well, that's a good question. The only way to find out is to ask them. So remember, we've talked about before that prescription without diagnosis is malpractice. Therefore, you must take the time to diagnose what the problem is. That's your job. Your job is to ask the questions and do what we call an investor identity interview, or triple I. You may hear me refer to it as that. You must do the triple I interview. And what ends up happening is that through that process, you will discover where the problem is. And the problem is what they see as the problem, right? So typically, and this is where the retirement plans come in, are very, very good. Typically, the problem when someone has a retirement plan is that they usually need it to grow. And by grow, I mean they need to take a 100,000 and make it 200, or 200 and make it three, or 300 make it four. And they don't have a way of that is structured that can get them there. And that is where you come in. You come in as a part of their plan, not their entire plan, unless you're working a transaction that is large enough for that. That's very possible. But you come in as a part of that plan in order to help them along that particular journey. So, for example, sometimes it can be as simple as, like you stated, a return that is greater than their 401k loan payment. Now, you mentioned the 401k loan. That is not my preferred way of them accessing the capital. It is a way. And unfortunately, the regulations around that just limit the amount of capital that they typically can access. And they make the repayment period very, we'll call it very quick, which can make that a challenging way to do it. So, what we tend to suggest instead, okay, Christy, what we tend to suggest instead is to use a what is known as a third party custodian. It's basically a new institution. So instead of, say, leaving the funds at a Vanguard or a Charles Schwab or someplace like that, there are other institutions that have always been around. It's been legal since 1974 to do exactly what I'm talking about, the ERISA Act of 1974. And you would put it with a different, what is known as a custodian. They would then be the ones who would have, uh, they would be the ones holding the funds, and your third party administrator would be who you would work through. So think of the third party administrator as the front end, and that third party administrator works with a custodian. The custodian holds the money. The third party administrator typically does the customer service and the front end work. And then you end up talking or going to the office of the third party administrator, or the person with the retirement plan does. And it's just that simple. It's literally a paperwork transaction, right? So that is a better way. And then what ends up happening is, in the same way that the person with the retirement plan can go and log into their Charles Schwab account, and then they see the line items of the things that they're which mutual funds or ETFs, etc., that their retirement plan is currently vested in. Instead of seeing mutual funds, they would see your property or your short-term rental business or whatever note that they funded. That's what they would see instead, right? They would see all of the same information in terms of valuations and whatnot, but it would be representative of your particular business instead. That would be way, way better. Why would they trust you? That is a good question. Why would they trust you? That's actually my kind of almost my question. Why would they? I don't know why they would. I know why they could. They could because you've demonstrated, like I said, there's two things required: competency and character. That's it. So you can demonstrate your competency via education, by teaching them about the short-term rental business. So let me say it differently. You could literally take what we've given you in the first 3 sessions and teach that to them. And that would be you demonstrating competency in what we're talking about. That's what would happen. And then your character, assuming you already know this person, they probably already have a level of understanding relative to your character. And those are the two things that are required. That's why, or that's part of the reason why. But remember, you're solving a problem, right? So that's like asking, if you and a friend wanted to go to the movies, and for whatever reason you said, "Hey, let me drive." They Why would they let you pick them up? You're solving part of the problem. It's a small, it doesn't feel like it's a big problem today because transportation is so prevalent, right? But this is what we do as entrepreneurs: is we gather the resources available in a marketplace or an economy, and we put them to more productive use. It's like literally the job, right? So they would trust you because you've demonstrated character and competence, or your team has, and that's what we're going to talk about here shortly. And you get them there by doing that very thing. You demonstrate your competency, you demonstrate your character. These are the things, and you just help them to understand that you're solving a problem. That's a process, but that's what you do. Now, that process doesn't have to take long. It can be as simple as a 30-minute conversation where you've inquired, you've run your triple I, and you through the triple I, sometimes you can demonstrate your competency. Because see, when you understand someone else's problem better than they do, and or have anticipated additional challenges related to their problem, and you do so not by talking at them or telling them, but by just asking insightful questions, often that tells them that you are a little bit more competent at handling this particular situation. So there are many ways to, as you say, get them there. So I'm hoping that answers the question. All right. So let's go here. Now, when it comes down to being very, very focused on, whoops, where we go? There we go. When it comes down to being very focused on getting your business built and understanding who do you need on your team, a lot of the individuals that you need on your team are not necessarily the ones that you may think of. So, for example, there's definitely a need for a cleaning person. So you need cleaning. Cleaning is a really big issue around this whole short-term rental thing. Now, it's good. I'm just saying it has to be present. Additionally to that, you don't want to be a chief everything officer any longer than you must. So that, yes, that's CEO, but that is where we all start. So you start as the person who's doing all the things, right? And we're going to talk about some more of those. But the one thing I would say from the beginning that you never want to be doing, you don't want to be doing the cleaning. There's no reason you should have to or be doing the cleaning whatsoever. Okay. Now, there's individuals. Now, when we talk about the team, I want you to think of it as in two categories. There's those that work more internally to the organization, and then there are those that work, say, towards the actual service delivery side. So there are individuals who are going to be more customer facing or creating and developing and helping the service actually happen. And then there are those individuals who are working internally for your organization. So the individuals who are working internally on the organization, there are two that are critical. One is your executive assistant, which by so many aspects can tell me that that is like the first person you need. And then second is your bookkeeper. You must have both of these. I know many of you may have experience with doing your own books, and you may believe that, hey, I'm saving money by doing my own books. And I promise you, it is costing you more in time and effort, energy, emotions, etc., because that's no longer the highest and best use of your time, is doing your books. Here's a quick rule of thumb. If it brings $500 an hour of value to your company, then by all means do it. You personally do it. If it doesn't, then don't. That straightforward, that simple. If it brings $500 of value to your company, then you do it. If it doesn't, hire it done. That thought process is going to keep you from doing the things that keep your company small and unprofitable. Okay. So just start there and continue. So this is why you're not doing your cleaning. This is why you're not doing the books. This is why you must have someone to help you manage the amount of communication that you begin to receive. And then you continue. Now, those two individuals are internal to your organization. It is obvious, though, that when we're talking about the service delivery side, that yes, you have to have cleaning, but you also must have maintenance. Now, this one is no fun. And do not even think that, oh, well, I'll let my property manager do it, or I let my the apartment do it, or apartment community do it, or you need maintenance. Okay. In order to avoid what is more expensive, vacancy, you must have a plan for how to execute maintenance and things like maintenance and replacement in between turnovers. For example, a lot the way the system functions is departures at 11 a.m. Your local time, 11 a.m. And new arrivals are at 4 p.m. So the difference between 11 a.m. and 4 p.m. is only 5 hours. But in that 5 hour span, your job, your system's job is to reset that location back to its original state, the same original state that it was in when you took the photos. You must endeavor to keep the photos and the location looking the same at all times, especially when they arrive, because that is what they purchase. They purchase those photos, if you think about it, and they're expecting when they go through the door for it to look exactly like it. Any deviation, and you will have a problem. But which is where maintenance comes in, because your landlord, your apartment community, whomever you're working with, they do not have a maintenance team that is set up to respond the way that you need to within that 5 hour window. Therefore, you must be the one to make sure that that is organized. Okay. Yes, you may be skilled at tightening a screw on the door or the toilet or the little toilet handle that jiggles, or all the things. You may know how to do that. But again, ask yourself, is that a $500 an hour? The answer is no. So therefore, you personally do not do it. Hire it done. Okay. And then, of course, as you continue with the rest of your hiring and processes, you're going to want to make sure that you have access to a bunch of we'll call them investors, because you need the more investors, the more the potential sources of capital that you have, the faster you can actually continually grow. And I don't want you to ever, ever limit the size of your business, because you don't have to. And because we solve the problems that we do solve, we want to make sure that, well, we have everything we need to continually execute. There's also a person who kind of plays in the middle. So it's in between you and in between the maintenance and the cleaning is what we tend to call, we'll call them an operational assistant. Here's what ends up happening. You have inside of your storage, because you're going to have a separate storage. Inside of your storage, someone has to organize it and make sure that the soap stays where the soap needs to stay, and that the sheets are organized, the duvets, the covers, everything you need from a supply standpoint is clean and organized and in the proper spots. And then occasionally there are some emergency needs as well. Or if there's something that needs to be replaced, like right now, I'm in the middle of replacing a stove. Yeah, no fun. And yes, that's what we're doing. Replacing a stove in a particular location. So that takes some coordination and organization to make happen, right? And those are the things that you want to continually think through, is how can I do that? Because again, you only have 11 to 4. 11 to 4. It's only 5 hours. And what that simply means is that you can't be the person who's doing it, because as your business continually scales, you're going to have multiple things. It is very possible to have 2, 3, 4, 10, 20 turns in a day. And you can't be in all 20 locations or places at once. And your system must be able to be resilient enough and robust enough to handle the communication back and forth, as well as supply and procurement. With that being said, one of the individuals beyond the operational assistant is going to be what is eventually what we like to call your customer experience team, because maintaining consistent communications with the guest is also necessary. because your guest wants to know, hey, what's going on? I asked for a blanket. Do you have any more blankets? If you have another blanket, when's the blanket coming? Hey, the sink is still dripping, etc. You want to put yourself in a situation in which not only can you respond to emergency issues, but you can also respond to inquiries and other questions about the general area. And as weather conditions change, sometimes that becomes a thing. Hey, is it snowing? Or if you're out here in California, is the fire really close to the location? Because that's the thing. And is it safe? How's it, depending on what's going on or what they may have seen on the news, you need staff to make sure that they can address and help the customers deal with what to you may be normal, but to them becomes an emergency. And yes, I know you wrote out your directions, and maybe you even made videos, and you did your best. You should add photos, but yes, unfortunately, whether you realize it or not, people will still not be able to find your location. It's just kind of what happens. I don't know why. I just know that. Does that make sense? I hope so. As you continue, what you will begin to see is that you will have individuals, like I said, who are working, yes, internally as well as more on the service delivery side. But together, what ends up happening is that you're able to do 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 turns in a day or 100 reservations in a month. And you'll be able to service a lot of individuals relatively simply, and you will put yourself in a position to where there isn't much for you personally to do on a day-to-day basis. At this moment, there's really only one type of person that's majorly left from a day-to-day operational standpoint situation, and that is someone who is doing your revenue management, meaning when do you have a 2-day minimum stay? How much is the Tuesday? How much are Tuesdays 3 weeks from now? What are you pricing for your holidays or any sort of special day that your customer, not you, your customer may be interested in or may be the reason for traveling? So for those who possibly are near, say, a sports arena and or a convention center, this can become, these are windows of opportunities. They're what we like to call tent pole events. When those events happen, you've got your rates that tend to spike just for a short period of time, but they spike. And when they spike, you want to be able to capture any additional revenue that is there, because that is part of the opportunity in which you are participating. So that's another way of saying that your rates are not static. They should be dynamic. Because the circumstances surrounding your area are constantly in flux. They constantly change. And because they're constantly in flux and change, then what you too must do is change right along with all of the rates. And pretending like the rates aren't, that they're the same is a drastic mistake that, well, it's just a drastic mistake. So don't do that. Now, understanding that with that as your, we'll call it skeleton crew infrastructure, you can build a very nice 6 and 7 figure business. But you've got to put all the people in place. Like, for example, when I say customer experience, that's a 5-person department, meaning there's a manager and at least 4 dedicated customer experience agents. Now, the manager can also be a customer experience agent, but it's going to take about 5 people to have 24/7 coverage. And then when I say, maintenance, you're probably going to have 2 or 3 maintenance individuals who you might have on call and on any given day. And then your operational assistant, that is 1 person. Same with the executive assistant. Typically, the bookkeeper is going to also have, you're going to have an accountant and a tax preparer of some kind. And eventually, you'll end up with a CFO as well. So as you continue to build, understand what I'm saying is that there's a lot of individuals who are going to be on the team, but you don't need them all to start. You kind of need you, right? So the most important thing to understand is that's where you're headed. That's not where you begin. You begin with literally where you are right now with what you have, because what you have is beyond enough in order for you to take that first step, period. And while working with your investors and or friends, you may know them, helping them to earn more in their retirement plan is a great idea, great strategy, great way to put yourself in a situation that gives you an advantage that you may not have considered before. It is all of those things and more that end up making up the entire difference in how your business continues to work. But ultimately, those first two people, it's going to be your executive assistant. It's going to be your bookkeeper because they help free up your time from some tasks that every business has at the beginning. That means it keeps you focused on talking to landlords. It keeps you focused on acquiring more location. It keeps you focused on doing the things that are the IGAs, income generating activities. We've talked about who you should hire, and ultimately, what it comes down to is understanding that the list that's the most variable, it's very similar to what we said was the homework yesterday in terms of having the list of investors. But now let's be way more intentional about it because, see, if you have already completed the homework from yesterday, here's where you are now. You are now at a point to where you've crossed some people off that list and you've gotten a few more referrals. And because you've gotten a few more referrals and you've talked to some people, you now, certain people said, some of the people that you talked to said, well, I got 10 grand, I got five, or I know someone who might have some. And now those people who responded in the affirmative, those are the ones that you're going to begin to make sure you database and keep track of them and stay in touch with them now. Okay. And continuously, what you're going to do is to put yourself in a position to not only leverage their contact sphere, but also continually deepen your relationship with them, because that is the key to the rest of your business. Now, when it comes down to doing your homework here, here's what I would love for you to do. We don't want the names and numbers, okay? But at least on your homework sheet, you need to have the first name of the person, first name only, because that way we know you've taken some time and thought about it. So even if you write it all out, just, mark it out, block it out, because we still want you to win the prize. Because the prize this time is a very important book. It is Profit First by Michael Michalowicz. And you're going to want to make sure that you, again, turn the homework in by 9 a.m. Pacific time. 9 a.m. Pacific time is when you want to turn the homework in. And again, you can do that over here at cashflowdiary.com/homework. Now, we're going to get very specific in the next section. We're going to get very specific, meaning sometimes people are wondering, what locations do I need to do? What's going to be the best strategy to take on a step-by-step basis? And what do who's going to take the photos? And what does my photographer need? Or how could I narrow down to, say, a street? Like, is that possible to know exactly what street to choose? Well, the answer is yes. And we're going to go through some more steps to make sure that happens now. But before we do, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. I'm going to ask you to start now today. Some of you already know that you like what we have shared with you thus far. Yes, we have more. We even have some bonus sessions coming up that you're going to be, finding out about, which I'm excited about. But most importantly, what I'm going to ask you to do is to get on the phone with Rob and or Jeremy. Why? Because you want to find out more about the Cashflow Diary roadmap. That is what we call it. That is the 12-month program that we use to help individuals become 7-figure short-term rental operators. Or if 6 figures is all you're after, that's fine too. Either way it goes, the intent is to take you, the person who does not know anything about real estate and doesn't feel like they have a lot of resources, but to take time, help you take your time and learn to build an asset. And then that asset then duplicates bunny rabbits, leapfrogs, whatever you want to call it itself, so that you go from 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to more. And over time, what you end up is free cash flow. That free cash flow is what funds additional investments. And those additional investments then become your net worth, your legacy, the estate, if you will. And there is no age restriction, meaning 18-year-olds are welcome, as well as 88. There is no difference to us. What is different is, some of the unique things you'll bring to the table around who you want to serve and maybe where. Get on the phone at cashflowdiary.com/let's meet. Okay. Cashflowdiary.com/let's meet. What you're doing so to get the rest of the questions that you may have surrounding the roadmap answered. Well, you're like, Jay, what is the roadmap? Totally understood. And that's what I'm going to tell you right now. And then we'll be done here shortly. Is the roadmap to retirement is 5. It's 5 times a week. Understand, 5 times a week of group calls. What that means is they're delivered live, right? You get trained by myself and select experts in various industries that I know you need exposure to. For example, sometimes it's just how do you do cash management? This is hard. I need help. Totally understood. And we help you with that. Sometimes it's around, hey, I can't do less than 30 days in my market. No problem. We work with individuals who do what we call extended stay model, and we help you with that. Sometimes it's, okay, cool. I've been able to build a portfolio now. Maybe you currently have 10, 15, 20 units, and you're like, okay, what else can I do with this cash flow that is sitting either in my profit or my tax account? What can I do with that? How can I make it grow while I continue to do what I'm currently doing? Great question. We help you with that because all of those things become a part of serving the entrepreneur on a 360-degree level. You get assigned a personal accountability coach whose job it is to help you stay on track, which means so long as you don't hide from us, you will always know what to do next, as in always know what to do next, like the next specific step to take. We have a dedicated app that you'll have on your mobile devices. You'll be able to network with the largest community of short-term rental operators who actually know what they're doing and are doing it well across the globe. And you'll have access to all of the trainings that we have ever done and recorded. Here's why this is important. I know that many of you want to buy real estate long-term. That's what you're after. And what we're asking you to do is hey, wait, I know you saved up the down payment. So now what we're going to do is we're going to build the short-term rental portfolio. And then we're going to take the income from that portfolio that is built, and we're going to use it to be the down payment machine. That down payment machine is then going to fund all those purchases into the future. But we got to build the machine first. And to learn how to build that machine, how to control apartment buildings and single family houses and commercial real estate, how to build that machine, how to actually then go buy these pieces of real estate, that's where the 37 courses come in. That's what they're there for. That's why they're there. That's why they're there for you. We have consistent Q&As. No question goes unanswered. You will have access to the entire short-term rental business system that we are using that, like I said, we currently have the privilege of working with students in multiple countries. We only ask that you speak English at this time. And understanding how to have that conversation with investors and or landlords in a more detailed, literally step-by-step checkmark fashion is where income infusion comes in. And for those of you who have never, ever, ever had a business before, that's where Cash Flow Foundations as well as Ninja Negotiations come in, helping you to learn why would anyone do business with you and what are your leverage points in a conversation, and how do I just set up my business anyway? What do I need to do every day? Well, we've got all of those things there for you. And I know some of you've taken advantage of our short-term rental blueprint. So if you haven't now, well, you'll have that too. And just understand what you have received in the blueprint is not duplicated in anything else that you see here. So it's all there for you in order to build, in order to grow, and to also become. All of that, it comes in a package for $18.49 per month over the 12-month time. So what we're asking for is a 12-month commitment. And we know that with 3 bedrooms in operation, you're now at break even. Our goal for you in the first 4 months is actually to have 4, and then to double that one more time, and then to double that one more time. That is what we desire for you at a minimum. However, it comes down to how fast are you willing to move, not how much resources do you currently have. That is not the critical component here. is how much resources you have. What's critical is how fast are you willing to move through the information, to accept the fact that what we're talking about is, hey, your annual income becomes your monthly income, and then learning to do that on 1 hour a day. Both of those things are there. Accelerating your income while decreasing the amount of time it takes for you to earn it so that you can then go do the things that you care about most. This is how we have and do create seven-figure operators every year. This is the path. This is the process. This is what we've been up to. And this is honestly what's exciting for us. Now, when you get over to cashflowdiary.com/roadmap, you'll be able to go ahead and get started all on your own. It has a summary, a recap of everything that I've just shared with you here. And for those of you who still want to ask a few more questions, by all means, please do so. You're going to go to cashflowdiary.com/let's meet. When you get there, you're going to be able to speak with either Rob, who, as I've said before, when you're trying to make that transition from, say, W-2, or you're wondering, hey, was that for real? Like, can I really build a portfolio that then changes the trajectory of my family tree? Yes, is the short answer. But more importantly, listen to Rob. He'll tell you exactly what that means and how that works. For those of you who want to be super aggressive, you're like, dude, I'm going to crush this. Great. When you go to cashflowdiary.com/let's meet, make sure you talk to Jeremy, because that's like this. That's the one thing he's got on his mind is total world domination and takeover. He's ready for it. And so are you. If you've had the thought, the inclination, you're ready for it. And in either case, in any case, here's what I do not allow the funds to stop you. You may not know where they're coming from, but that's where Rob and Jeremy are going to help you get your questions answered and take the next step. Period. Your next step is to do that, and then do the homework, and then continually show up just like you have today, just like you will tomorrow, just like you will, honestly, for the rest of your life. Today's the day, time to engage and become a bigger, better version of who you thought you were. See, we did all this because we believe in you already. If we did not believe in you, we would not have done it. The reason we do it and continue to show up is because, hey, you have a need, and that need can be met with cash flow. And if that's the only thing that's missing, then it is incumbent upon those of us who have figured that part out to share it with you. And that's exactly what we're doing. That's why we're doing it, because it completes us. I know, corny, but you get my point. It's just that the more people that we can help, the better. The more seven-figure business owners we create, that's honestly way more exciting. And helping you not just get there, but stay, and then build from that to the next generation, and then to the generation after, and understanding that that can be done with strategy and now from where you are. And even if you are the person who's like, man, I ain't got no time, totally understand. That's why and how the system is designed, so that it uses as little of your time as humanly possible. You will invest time on the front end, but the return of that investment is huge. You will invest money on the front end, but the return is also, again, huge. So get over to cashflowdiary.com/let's meet and get started. Like, get your questions answered. Go make it happen. As we talked about on the very, very first day, it's now o'clock. Like, as in right now, o'clock. As in go, don't wait, don't think, just do. Because you keep showing up, and we keep giving you more information to put in the workbook. And tomorrow, same thing. And you will see some bonus sessions in which we will continue to do that same thing. You have only one responsibility. Keep showing up, so that your belief in what is possible for you increases. Keep showing up and allowing us to influence in you, so that so that what you do believe becomes more probable as well. As I said before, we enjoy this. We consider it a privilege, and I thank you very much for allowing us to invest some more time and for showing up and being there. And just being the participant that you have been. Look forward to talking to you guys again. Till next time.